Father Miguel sat alone in his dimly lit office, the glow from the monitor casting long shadows across the room. The recent wave of burglaries in the parish had left him uneasy, compelling him to review footage from hidden cameras night after night. His hope was slim, but he prayed for even the smallest clue that might reveal the culprits. Hours dragged on, with nothing but the standard blinking lights and changing shadows. Just when Miguel was about to call it quits for the evening,
compelling him to
a familiar
review
face
from
flashed on
cameras
screen.
night after night.
It was Cardinal
His
Luis
hope was
Antonio
slim,
Tagle.
but he prayed for
the
even the
Cardinal
smallest
walked
clue
with
that might reveal.
determination, oblivious of the camera recording everything he did. What transpired next paralyzed Father Miguel
Hours
in
crawled
his seat,
by, filled with
his
nothing
heart
but the
pounding
usual
in shock. 2 weeks prior, the town was abuzz with anticipation. The news had spread rapidly.
Flickering lights
Cardinal
and shifting
Luis
shadows.
Antonio Tagle
Just
was
as Miguel
visiting their
considered
parish.
giving up for the night,
The news lit a
familiar
fire of expectation within all, from the religious regulars to those who hardly ever ventured in.
Appeared on
His
the screen.
fame for being kind and humble had gone far further than the church building, so he was a man to be looked up to by everyone. The pre-days of his arrival were a whirling of activity. The pews shone, the courtyard freshly
the Cardinal
swept,
moved with purpose,
and the decorations
completely
methodically
unaware
placed
of the
in
camera.
honor of so honored a visitor. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone has a
Miguel
fine
frozen in
beginning
his
to the
chair,
new
his
ecclesiastical
heart racing
year.
in disbelief.
Welcome
2
everyone
weeks
back
earlier,
to St. Sophia's.
the town was alive
Today
with
we're
excitement.
here with the assistance of Cosmos Philly to take you through what's the latest happening here at St. Sophia regarding our church, Father Miguel said.
Word had spread quickly.
Families started showing
Cardinal
up
Luis
hours in
Antonio
advance
Tagle
of the service, hoping to get a spot close enough to view the Cardinal up close. The church was soon filled, and before
coming
long,
to visit their parish.
even the courtyard
The news
was full of
ignited a
people
spark of
straining their
anticipation
necks
in
to
everyone.
catch a glimpse of
From
the
the
man whose presence seemed to be imbued with hope. Father Miguel waited at the main
Devout
entrance,
churchgoers to those who
adjusting
rarely set
his
foot
collar.
inside.
Though the
His
evening
reputation
air
for
was cool,
compassion and humility
his
had
palms
reached
were
far
moist
beyond the
with
church.
anxiety. He had met Cardinal Tagle earlier, but this time it felt different, more important. The weight of the recent break-ins hung over the parish,
making him a figure
and Miguel
admired
hoped
by all.
silently that
The
the
days
Cardinal's
leading up
visit
to his
would be
arrival
some
were a
much-needed
flurry of
respite.
preparation.
Gravel
The pews
crunching
were
beneath
polished,
the
the
tires
courtyard
announced
swept
the
clean.
arrival of the black sedan. Miguel breathed deeply and stepped forward as the car pulled to a halt. The Cardinal got out,
And decorations carefully
unfurling his
arranged to honor such a
characteristic warm
distinguished
smile
guest.
and slight
Good
bow
afternoon,
for the crowd assembled
everybody.
before him.
I hope that
Your
everybody
Eminence,
has a wonderful start
Miguel
of the
said,
new...
bowing deeply. The Cardinal's presence was like a wave of tranquility that rippled through the throng. Parishioners tense and reserved in the wake of the recent crimes now
Welcome
smiled
back
at
to
one
St.
another
Sophia's.
and were filled with hope.
Today, we're
His
here with the
coming
help of
alone
Cosmos
had
Philly
seemed
to
to
show you
raise
what's the
their
newest thing
spirits.
going on here at St.
Within the
Sophia in
church,
terms of our
the Cardinal walked through the throng with ease and grace. He greeted with a handshake, bestowed blessings, and addressed every
Father Miguel
individual
announced.
with genuine
Families
interest,
began arriving
treating
hours
them
before
as
the
if they were
service.
special and noticed. Father Miguel stood at the periphery of the crowd, awed. With his high rank, Cardinal Tagle walked like a servant
To
in
secure a
humility.
spot close enough to
His
see the Cardinal
charisma was
in
as
person.
effortless
The
as
church
the air
filled
he
quickly,
breathed.
and soon
But as
even
Miguel
the courtyard
noticed,
overflowed with
something
people craning
caught
their
his
necks for a
attention.
glimpse of the man
Clara,
whose presence
the
seemed to
church
carry a sense
housekeeper,
of hope.
stood
Father
at the
Miguel
side
stood
aisle.
by the...
She was usually quiet and reserved, but today she appeared abnormally tense. Her fingers drummed anxiously, and she kept casting nervous glances toward the Cardinal
Despite the
with
cool
an expression
evening breeze,
Miguel couldn't quite
his palms
identify.
were damp with nerves.
Was it fear, worry, or something else? It was subtle, but it unnerved him enough to make a mental note to talk to her afterwards.
But this occasion felt
For the
different,
time being,
more
however,
significant.
attention
The
was
burden of the
directed
recent
toward the
burglary-
Cardinal and the revelatory power that his visit imposed on the parish. Little did Miguel realize that this was just the start of a chain of events
on the
that would
parish,
test everything
and Miguel
that he
silently
believed.
prayed that the
Clara
Cardinal's visit
hung
might
about
bring
in the
some
back near the
much-needed relief.
sacristy,
The sound of
her
gravel
hands clutched into a tight grasp. Her eyes darted nervously towards Cardinal Tagle.
crunching under
Her
tires
stance
signaled the
stiff
arrival
and
of the
tense,
sleek
as
black
if she was
car.
preparing
Miguel
herself
took
for
a deep
something she
breath and
feared.
stepped forward.
When the Cardinal
As the vehicle
finally
came to-
approached her, she hesitated for a split second before advancing. She
Stop.
spoke to him
The
in a
Cardinal
low
emerged,
voice,
offering
her
his
words
signature warm...
indistinguishable from where Father Miguel was standing. The Cardinal gave a slight nod in return, his expression impassive for a moment,
smile
betraying
and a
none
slight
of
bow
the
to the gathered
exchange.
crowd.
Clara
Your
said
Eminence,
nothing else,
Miguel
but turned
greeted,
and left the
bowing
room
deep-
suddenly. Her white face twisted with an emotion that Miguel could not quite place.
The Cardinal's
Fear,
presence seemed to ripple
maybe,
through the crowd
or
like a
guilt.
wave of calm.
Whatever it was,
Parishioners
it
who had
disturbed
been
him.
tense and reserved
Miguel
due to
felt
the
his
recent
stomach
crimes
turn
now
as
greeted
he
each other
attempted
with...
to understand what he had just seen. Clara had always been level-headed and unobtrusive. never seeking to call attention to herself. And here she was, acting in a manner that was so very uncharacteristic of her.
It was as if his arrival
particularly
alone had
in front of
lifted
someone
their
as
spirits.
respected and
Inside the
admired as
church,
Cardinal Tagle. Miguel tried to shake off his discomfort, attributing it to nervousness about the day's critical events. But the glimpse of Clarara's hasty words and the Cardinal's enigmatic reply would not be shaken
moved
off.
through the sea of
A
people
gnawing
with
suspicion
ease and grace.
tugged at the
He
periphery
shook
of his
hands,
mind,
offered blessings,
suggesting
and
that their
spoke to each
encounter had a meaning he had not yet understood. As the night went on, Miguel did his best to keep his mind on his work, greeting parishioners and making sure the Cardinal's visit went smoothly.
With genuine interest,
even so, his mind kept coming back to Clara.
Father Miguel
What had she
watched
told
from the
the
edge of the
Cardinal?
crowd,
Why had she
filled with
seemed so
admiration.
shaken?
Despite
Miguel
his high
dismissed
rank,
these questions from his mind, not wanting his own worrying to ruin what was supposed to be a happy occasion. It was almost midnight when the piercing ring of Miguel's phone broke the quiet of his small bedroom. Startled, he reached for the phone on his nightstand, rubbing his eyes to
Cardinal
focus on the
Tagle
screen.
carried himself
The
with the
caller
humility
ID
of a
read
servant.
the name of the
His
security
charisma
firm
was as
that was
natural as the
contracted
air
to
he
watch
breathed.
over the newly
Yet,
installed cameras
as Miguel
at the church.
observed,
A knot of fear tightened in his chest. Following weeks of quiet monitoring, a call at this time could only have one meaning: trouble. "Father Miguel," said the operator's level but insistent voice.
Though,
"We've seen some
remained
strange
on the Cardinal
activity
and the
on the
transformative
church
energy
grounds.
his visit brought
You
to
might
the
want to
parish.
take a look at
Little
the
did
footage
Miguel
from
know.
camera 3 by the east corridor." Miguel hung up, his own heart racing. Shrugging on a jacket over his night robe, he headed towards the cramped office where the security monitors were located. The church was soundlessly still,
Something caught
its
his
long
eye.
halls shrouded
Clara,
in darkness.
the church housekeeper,
Moonlight
stood near
streamed
the
through the
side
colored
aisle.
glass windows,
Normally quiet and
casting
composed,
broken hues on
she
the
seemed
floor.
unusually tense.
But the loveliness
Her
of the
hands
moment
fidgeted
did
nervously,
nothing to calm
and she
Miguel's
kept glancing
increasing
toward the
tension.
Cardinal with an expression
Seated in the
Miguel
light of the
couldn't quite
screens,
place.
Miguel
Was it
scrolled
fear,
through the video
concern,
from earlier
or something
in the
else
evening.
entirely?
The
It
screen
was subtle,
initially showed
but
nothing
it unsettled
unusual:
him enough to make a
vacant
mental note
corridors, secured doors, and the quiet that always fell over the church after dark. But as the clock ticked past 11 p.m., a shape emerged from darkness, its pace slow and deliberate. Miguel's own breathing stopped.
This was just the beginning of
The
a
figure
series of
moved
events that
deeper
would challenge
into the
everything
screen,
he thought he knew.
and the faint light
Clara lingered in
outlined
the
the
shadows near the
unmistakable shape
sacristy,
of Cardinal
her
Luis
hands clasped
Antonio
tightly
Tagle.
together.
Miguel
Her gaze
hunched over the screen, his heart pounding. The Cardinal's steps were slow, almost stealthy, as if he did not want to be observed. He stopped every few paces to look over his shoulder, peering into the shadows with a wariness that didn't fit the calm, kind man Miguel had met earlier in the day. Miguel's heart was constricting as he watched the video play out.
Tagle.
What
Her
was the
posture
Cardinal
rigid and
doing
tense,
walking the
as though
church
she were
at this
bracing
time
herself
of
for a
night?
moment she
The
dreaded.
more Miguel
When the
watched,
Cardinal
the
finally
more
moved
ominous
closer,
the scene
she
became.
hesitated for a
The
brief
Cardinal's
second before
movements
stepping
were
forward.
deliberate,
In a hushed
as
tone,
if he were looking
she
for
whispered
something
to
or
him.
someone.
Her words
Miguel
inaudible
couldn't
from
help
where
but
Father
feel
Miguel
that there was
stood.
much more to
The
this
Cardinal
nighttime
nodded
outing
slightly in
than it
response,
initially seemed.
his face a mask
And
of
as the
calm,
video went on,
revealing nothing of the
what he next
exchange.
witnessed left
Without
him
another
holding
word,
the edge of the desk, his discomfort now entirely replaced by alarm. As Cardinal Tagle reached Clarara's quarters, he stopped outside her door. His hand rested on the doorknob for a moment, pausing. He looked down the darkened hall one final time, making sure he wasn't being observed. Once assured that he was alone, he turned the handle and crept inside, out of sight. Father Miguel sat paralyzed, staring at the screen, his mind racing, trying to put the image of the dignified and revered Cardinal into the picture of a man operating so stealthily. A rush of doubt and confusion washed over him. His initial impulse was to extend the Cardinal the benefit of the doubt. There must be an innocent explanation for what he had been doing. But the secrecy, the furtive glances over his shoulder, and the timing all chewed away at Miguel's determination. He watched the tape again, studying each detail. The Cardinal's actions were deliberate, even calculated. His actions weren't just guarded, they were systematic. Miguel rocked back in his chair, his unease mounting second by second. The late night and the Cardinal's decision to come to Clarara's room, of all rooms, made no sense. Why would he be in Clarara's room? Miguel grumbled to himself. He attempted to shake off the sinister possibilities seeping into his mind, but they stuck tenaciously, refusing to be swayed. His logical mind searched for answers. Maybe the Cardinal had something important to ask of Clara, or perhaps he was bringing some tidings that was best communicated privately. But the picture on the screen hinted at a different scenario. There was no question that there was a sense of secrecy surrounding the cardinal in each action. After replaying the tape for 30 minutes without coming to any satisfactory conclusion, Miguel shut down the monitor and rubbed his forehead. He made a point of keeping a watchful eye on the case, collecting more information before drawing any conclusions. A nagging discomfort simmered deep within him, however. The cardinal's behavior suggested something much more complicated than Miguel could yet grasp. He attempted to shake off the sense as he departed from the office, but the church's hallways felt darker than ever before, the quietness heavier. Miguel assured himself he was making the right decision by waiting, but the little voice at the back of his head warned that his delay could cost him something he could not yet imagine. The following morning, sunbeams streamed into the church through the stained glass windows, bathing the church walls in warm hues. Yet, in spite of the golden light, the air inside the church was thick. Whispers spread through the congregation, with furtive looks and nervous faces. In some way, news of the cardinal's late-night activities had gotten around. Miguel suspected the security firm was the source, although he had hoped the situation would stay within bounds. Now it was creeping into the parish's collective mind, on the verge of getting out of hand. "I saw him around Clara's quarters," a woman whispered, her voice so low it was almost inaudible but full of curiosity. "Surely it's nothing," another answered, though there was an edge of doubt in her voice. "Cardinal Tagle is a man of God. There must be an explanation." But not everyone was so generous. A gruff voice cut through the whispers. "A man is a man," he said bluntly. "Clergy or not, sneaking around at night raises questions." Father Miguel pushed through the throng, his heart aching with each successive remark. Each statement he heard seemed another rock added to the burden he already bore. He had expected the event to be a personal issue, a thing he could watch in secret as he sorted out the facts. It was instead the subject of conversation among the parishioners, poised on the brink of scandal. The tension was palpable, fueled by the rumors and conjecture. Miguel's efforts to reassure himself that he was doing the right thing by waiting and observing started to waver. For the first time, he questioned whether or not he had made a wrong choice in sitting back and waiting. Whatever the truth behind the cardinal's actions, it was clear that the matter was far from contained, and Miguel couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to spiral in ways he wasn't prepared to handle. Father Miguel's doubts only grew. The weight he bore was crushing. He couldn't deny what he'd witnessed, but accusing Cardinal Tagle with no concrete proof was unthinkable. The cardinal wasn't merely an older clergyman. He was a respected pillar in the church. A false claim could bring irreparable damage, not just to Tagle's reputation but also to the church's reputation and to Miguel's own reputation as well. But holding back gnawing at his conscience. His mind went to Clara, usually a quiet figure. Today she was a shadow of her former self. She did not meet his eyes, her shoulders slumped as if carrying an invisible burden. Clara refused to go with the other nuns for morning prayers, opting instead to stay by herself, her eyes on the ground. Miguel observed her from afar, recognizing her withdrawal. Could her behavior be linked to the cardinal's evening visits? Or was his mind jumping ahead, constructing a tale where none existed? That night, Miguel sat again in front of the security monitor, the faint light of the screen lighting up his creased brow. His hands shook a little as he replayed the videos from the past nights. Frame by frame, it showed the same disturbing pattern. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle exiting his quarters in the middle of the night, walking purposefully through the church corridors, and standing briefly outside Clara's door before entering. Every visit took more than an hour, sometimes two, before he went back to his own quarters. Miguel's unease became alarm when he saw a particularly disturbing moment. At one point, the video revealed the cardinal inviting Clara closer to him. She hesitated before she went closer, her body tense as she leaned forward. Her body language was guarded, her movements slow. When she finally left the room, her eyes were bloodshot, as if she had been crying. This was not an isolated incident. The pattern of the cardinal's behavior indicated something deliberate and profoundly secretive. Miguel's mind whirled with turmoil. He wanted to assume there was an innocent explanation, but the secrecy threw a long shadow of suspicion over any optimistic assumptions. For hours, Miguel sat quietly, considering his choices. To challenge Cardinal Tagle was to risk everything. His job, his reputation, and even the stability of the whole parish. But to do nothing seemed like a betrayal of his own conscience and of the trust that the parishioners had put in him. He was caught in a no-win situation. The sudden buzz of his phone cut into his reverie, startling him. He hesitated before answering it, fearing what would happen next. The caller ID read the security company's name, and his stomach dropped with a sinking feeling. "Father Miguel," the operator replied in a warily firm voice. "We've taken a look at more footage and have seen a persistent trend of behavior. In light of the situation, we think you should know that this is extremely unusual behavior and could be subject to further action." Miguel thanked the caller and hung up, with his heart weighing heavily. If even the security firm had reported the Cardinal's actions, how much longer could he excuse his inaction? His eyes returned to the monitor, where a static image of Tagle standing outside Clarara's door glared back at him. The Cardinal's face was serene, but the calculated stealth of his movements revealed an unnerving intent. Miguel rested back in his chair, the burden of his unavoidable choice weighing upon him like an iron shroud. He considered the parishioners and their hushed suspicions, the faith they had in the clergy. He considered Clara, whose reserved nature suggested an inner conflict he could not yet understand. And he considered Cardinal Tagle, a man respected by so many, whose reputation now teetered on a thin thread. With the break of dawn, which wrapped the church in a golden, gentle light, Miguel decided what he would do. He couldn't keep what he had seen to himself. The truth had to be discovered, but it must be discovered with care and with respect. A full hour went by, and Miguel stood outside the Cardinal Tagle's door, his heart beating so heavily he was sure it would reverberate throughout the empty hallway. He gripped his rosary in one hand, a minor attempt at calming his nerves. Steeling himself, he rapped lightly on the door. Almost at once, it opened, and there stood the Cardinal, looking serene and welcoming. "Father Miguel," Tagle saluted warmly, his voice firm. "What are you doing here at this time?" Miguel swallowed hard and entered the room. The room was simple, a reflection of the Cardinal's standing as a humble man, but Miguel hardly paid attention. His attention was all on the man before him. "Your Eminence," Miguel started, his voice shaking very slightly. "There is something I need to speak with you about, though it hurts me to do it." Tagle motioned for him to take a seat, his calm demeanor unbroken. "Please go on." Miguel paused, selecting his words carefully. "I have watched the security tapes for the last few nights. I have noticed that you have been going to Clarara's room late at night. The secrecy, the timing, it has raised some questions I can no longer avoid." For an instant, silence sat between them like a dense shroud. The Cardinal's face was still, but Miguel's heart pounded as he waited for a reply. To Miguel's surprise, Cardinal Tagle's face softened, not with hostility or defensiveness, but with compassion. The Cardinal steepled his hands and replied softly. "Sister Clara has been suffering from severe depression," he started. "When I got here, she came up to me in private on my first day here and asked for advice. She feels alone, weighed down by guilt she cannot purge herself of, and overwhelmed by what's being placed upon her." Miguel's breath caught as the Cardinal's words took hold. Memories of Clarara's white face, her slumped shoulders, and her avoidance of the other nuns flashed vividly in his mind. The clues were there all along, but Miguel had been too busy with suspicion to notice them clearly. "The late-night meetings," Tagle went on, "were at her insistence. She felt more secure speaking in the darkness, out of the reach of prying eyes and nosy questions. I consented to meet her then, not to conceal anything, but to respect her privacy and dignity. She was afraid others would think she was struggling." Miguel gazed at the Cardinal, the impact of his own assumptions coming down on him like a weight. He felt guilty as he remembered how readily he had allowed gossip and his own fears to get the better of him. "I see your worry, Father Miguel," Tagle said, his gentle voice calm. "But sometimes our vocations require secrecy. My intention was only to offer her comfort and spiritual guidance." Relief flooded Miguel, but it came with a dash of shame. He had questioned the integrity of the cardinal, thinking the worst of him rather than inquiring about the truth. Bending his head, Miguel whispered, "I am sorry, Your Eminence. I let doubt blind me." Tagle put a comforting hand on Miguel's shoulder. "We are all human, Father Miguel. Even in our religion, fear seeps in. What is important is that we act with humility and pursue the truth, as you have done." As Miguel departed the cardinal's chambers, peace started to settle over him. However, it was modified by the acknowledgement of how readily appearances could mislead. He made a decision to meet future situations with an open heart and mind, realizing how hurtful assumptions were, both to himself as well as to others. That afternoon, Clara went to Father Miguel in the chapel's quiet silence. Her steps were hesitant, her voice little more than a whisper. "Thank you, Father, for your understanding and discretion in keeping my struggles private," she said, her voice full of relief. Miguel nodded, touched by her trust. "You're not alone, Clara," he said softly. "We're here to help you bear that burden."